Hey everyone, Ryan here with Romeo Music for today's installment of Live Audio 101. Last week we talked about how a microphone captures sound and turns it into an electrical signal. As a quick side note, if you haven't already watched the video on microphones, make sure you check it out before you finish this one. So now that we have the electric signal, what do we do with it? The next step in our signal chain is the soundboard or the mixer. So what does a mixer do and why do we have one? A mixer will take all of the inputs, sounds from microphones or instruments or any other kind of source, and combine them into one signal. You can adjust the balance, the mix, the tone quality in individual inputs or in the whole mix. And it brings the amplitude of your signal up to a level that allows your amplifiers to work most efficiently. There are generally just two kinds of mixers on the market right now. Analog mixers, like the MG series from Yamaha, use analog circuitry to modify the waveform of your input. On the other hand, digital mixers like the SQ series from Allen & Heath use computers and software to modify your waveform. Because digital mixers don't require analog electronics, their logic and workflow is much more flexible. Mixers like the DL series from Mackie, for instance, don't even have physical controls. Instead, they use an app on a smart device to give a sound engineer control of the mix. For our purposes, at least in the 101 portion of this series, we're going to stick to analog mixers. Analog mixers tend to have a universal workflow and are generally more approachable for beginners. By the end of today's video, I hope you at least have an understanding of the layout and the function of your mixer. I promise it's not as scary as it looks. Every mixer generally breaks down into two sections. On the left is the input section, where you can modify the tone and balance of your sources to create your mix. And on the right is the routing section, where you can control where you want your mixes sent. Let's take a look at the input section first. The input section is divided into columns, or channels, which are effectively the same controls copy and pasted next to each other. Each channel corresponds to an input, whether it's a microphone or an instrument or some other source. At the top of each channel, you'll have an input and preamp. Below that, you'll find the gain or trim knob, which can change the amplitude of the signal coming into the board. Some boards will have an insert port and a compression knob, but we're going to ignore those for now. Some boards will have this pad button, which is to be used when the signal coming into the board has too great of an amplitude. Depending on your board, this button might be labeled low cut or high pass filter. These are generally used to decrease low-end rumble and handling noise in microphones. Below this is the EQ or equalizer, where you can change the high, mid, and low frequencies of your signal and adjust the tone quality and color. Below your EQ are your sends. This is where you determine if you want sound from this source going to someone's monitor or to an effects processor. The panning knob allows you to send the signal more to one side or the other of your stereo main mix, and the arm or mute button is effectively an on-off switch for the entire channel. And at the bottom of your channel will be your fader, which is your control for the amount of volume that comes out of this source. Of note in your fader bank is the beginning of our routing section. Using these buttons, you can determine if you want to send your signal from this source to the left-right main mix or to a sub-channel. We'll cover how and why you might do this in different ways later when we discuss physically setting up and running your sound check. And the last thing in your channel is the pre-fader level button. This allows you to isolate this one channel in the signal monitor so that you can set the gain or trim correctly. That was the hard part. Now all you have to do is determine how much of that sound you want going to your various outputs. The monitor or auxiliary main knobs send the mix from your sources to the monitor or auxiliary ports. The FX send knob adjusts how much of your dry mix gets routed to the FX processor. From there, you can determine how much of the processed wet mix goes into your monitors, subchannels, or mains. And of course, your main fader determines how much sound is going out of your main outputs. Now, if you're still overwhelmed or confused, don't worry. Once we know all the functions of all of this equipment and how to set it up, we'll come back and learn how to use all of its different functions when we do our sound check. If you need any other information about mixers, feel free to contact us at 1-800-466-1773 or email us at info@romeomusic.net. Make sure to click subscribe so that you stay current on the latest in music technology. Be sure to drop by next week as we cover the next step in our audio signal chain, the amplifier. And thank you for stopping by Romeo Music, your source for educational music and performing arts technology.